Hi, I'm Dan Rigler from Apothecary's Garden, and today I'm proud to introduce and interview a very special guest, Ken Cannata from Yin-Xi Craft Incense in Hawaii. Before we speak about incense, Ken, would you introduce yourself and tell us how to properly pronounce Yin-Xi and what the name means to you?
First off, I'm so grateful to be here, Dan.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here and to be interviewed by you, to be in your incredible facility. Like it's a joy, a real joy.
Thank you, Ken.
My name's Ken Cannata. I'm actually from around here in Buffalo, and it's very nostalgic for me to come back. And so Dan is so kind, and we enjoy the aromatic endeavoring. So it's really precious for me to be back in Canada, and for a lot of reasons. But my name and of the business and the studio is Yi-Xin Xiang Tang, and basically it just means Yi is the character for one in Chinese, and Xin means heart. It also means like heart mind. It also means core, like the core of something. And Xiang is fragrant, tasty, aromatic. And Tang is a hall, or like can also be like a studio. So my late teacher actually kind of named my studio, and he passed away, and it's a part of a phase of life where he had basically told me I needed to focus with sincerity. You know, Yi-Xin has like a connotation or a meaning of like awareness that's sincere but still pointed, still focused. And then Yi-Xin can also mean like wholehearted. It can mean, it also has a bunch of different layers where like Yi-Xin is a single stick of incense, one heart, like a little. So I have a lot of different ways that I like, there's a lot of layers to the name for me, and there's a lot of layers to the symbol, the logo itself. So there's.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first incense that truly stopped you in your tracks? What happened to you at that moment?
I got a few stories here for incense stopping me in my tracks. The first one is like 2005. I'm doing an undergraduate degree in a Buddhist university in Northern California. I just moved from Buffalo, doing martial arts, and I didn't know what the smell in the room was. And every morning and every evening, in those days, you got college credit at that school for doing Buddhist ceremonies. And so I didn't know it was sandalwood. I didn't know once a month, or like the full moon and the new moon, there was agarwood. I just knew that there was this smell, and it has become nostalgic now because I was like 19 or so when I went. But the actual my first incense experience, what stopped me in my tracks in a negative way. It was a negative experience.
Wow.
I was in school at that time, and a monk. We were in the morning. We had class, and he lit this just the cheap Chinese incense.
Right.
And I had an allergic I wanted to be sincere. I was young. I wanted to learn. I was so open. And he was basically hotboxing this little hall with this like gnarly, intense Chinese incense. Wow. And I basically said, we got to put it out. Like I want to recite, I want to bow, I want to do the whole thing, but we got to put it out. And they both kind of looked at me like, I think, okay. And they put it out, and they realized like, yeah, this was, even though for most Buddhist or most traditions, it's like it's just about the offering. It's not necessarily about the incense. They realize that, our student is having like a very serious reaction.
Yeah.
The first positive reaction I had was actually there's two stories. One of them is in China in 2010. I was on retreat in Wu Taishan, and Wu Taishan is a pilgrimage site for Manjushri Bodhisattva. And I was with a Qigong master from Buffalo, and I was with friends, and I didn't know what the smell was, but I learned then that it was like a really sweet Vietnamese aloes wood. That was the first time I bought agarwood powder in a little heater out in the middle of nowhere in Shanxi province. But my first incense stick, I think, was Pure Land in the 8 Directions, or it was another incense from Artisan. I had been hunting down on Etsy for different incense makers, and I finally realized like I knew there had to be incense out there that wasn't going to make me sick.
Yeah.
And I smelled, I think it was Pure Land in the 8 Directions, one of Karazen's old Etsy releases, or it might have been like one of his agarwoods. I just knew I got a few, and it was like, okay, we're good. I knew this was what I was looking for. It was just
You
so.
knew that's what you were looking for.
I knew that's what I was looking for. 100%. It
Yeah.
really hit me in the right spot, and then I was so grateful. I was like, I can offer some incense that's not going to make me gag
opens the door.
yeah.
And I've heard that you said that you read the ingredients as a source text. I love that phrase. What does an aromatic material tell you when you first meet it? How do you learn to listen?
It's a lot of questions in there. Yeah, there's a lot of layers in there. Well, first, just the idea of a source text, or like an aromatic ingredient, the same as a source text. That language comes from my undergrad and graduate program, where we're reading source texts in Chinese, Sanskrit, translating. We're reading great books. So that whole verbiage comes from my graduate studies.
Got it.
So the idea is like there is an ineffable, infinitely dilutable, profound resource in these texts. Perennial wisdom, timeless wisdom. You just have to be in a process with it. You have to read it, but not just read it from your own perspective. You do need guidance from a teacher, and you need to include context, and then you process it, and then you have this, they call it the triangle of tension in terms of the great books tradition, the shared inquiry, so that you're not merely the arbiter of all truth.
Right.
As we got to be careful with our subjective perception. So calibration becomes important. But I use that language because I really like that for aromatic materials, because it's how to listen to a raw material. That's a whole conversation, but basically you have to heat it up.
Yeah.
You don't, and you can even just do that with your breath. Breathing on it and smelling it, and then just kind of warming it, and you spend time with it. And listening is a profound practice. I might bounce around a lot. I have a lot of divergent different training. So like the tingjin in Chinese is like the term in Tai Chi practice when you're listening to your ability as a power to listen to an opponent. And you're listening, but you're listening with like your whole being.
Right.
And there's a power to it, the ability to listen. And
it's like a passive power.
Totally. And it's a very interesting thing. I would say I use those as touchstones to remind myself of what I'm trying to cultivate within myself, and how I want to approach these materials as source text. Also helps me keep my priority to respect them.
Nice.
I can get excited. I get excited. I love these things, and I want to keep reorienting myself to what's really important. And there's a lot of layers to what's important.
And that keeps you focused on the depth and meaning of what's in front of you.
Yeah, it really does. Because if you see something as a source text versus just another thing to play with, the play is, you don't want to lose the play. You want to have play, and you also want the play to lead to like genuine integration and profound maturation and respect that then has led me into a lot of things we'll get into, I think, today, but led me into places I could never have imagined down the line, just because of respect.
So it turned into a bigger journey than just learning to appreciate.
It did.
Nice.
Appreciation's the basis, and that it creates this respect. It's actually a special thing to even just start with appreciation. And to...
It's a good solid starting point.
For sure,
Keeps all the options open.
Yeah.
You've said that what separates a beautiful raw aromatic material from one that will actually make beautiful incense?
That's a good question. There's different styles of incense, and I focus on senko. I really, really like senko.
Could you explain a bit what senko is?
Xianxiang in Chinese, senko it's a pure coreless stick incense.
I see.
And there's a couple different thickness grades, but basically pure and nothing else. It's like no bamboo core, and usually not very thick. And that style is it's more subtle. It has more nuance. I really like that style. It's also the style that most inspired me, versus cone or stamps or seals or thick sticks or bamboo sticks. It's not like I don't like some of those. Those have their own place. I love the ability to articulate the essences of these materials through Senko. There's smaller windows of perception. There's a lot of elegance and nuance. There's the macrocosm and the microcosm, such a small thing. So what really determines its usefulness is, kind of simply like combustion, how it burns, how it vaporizes, if it can be blended without being overwhelming for that aesthetic.
Yeah.
So I'd say it's a very nuanced process of determining. And you don't want things to be too chaotic or too dense, or, I don't want, I want to articulate something cleanly and purely and with clarity.
And that allows you, that type of incense allows you to do so.
For
easily.
For sure.
And the difference between a raw, beautiful aromatic and one that will actually make beautiful incense, is there a difference? Or can you make a beautiful incense from any raw material?
That's a good question. I think because of the infinite perceptive capacities of people, you could probably make something beautiful to anyone. For me, I would say no, you can't.
Okay.
Because there's some materials just aren't. A beautiful material could be beautiful. What do I have off the top of my head? Like, there was a beautiful, I think it's a Mexican incense cedar that was grown in my friend's agroforestry project that I tried to experiment with, and it did have a scent, like a light floral, rosy, kind of dark red heartwood. It was just
pleasing.
It was to the raw, okay, this could be a thing.
Yeah.
And my friend grew it in a food forest. Like it's beautiful on all levels.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. I chose not to ever use it because when it burned, the burn rate was high and it was a bit too woody and kind of bland. And
right.
I did different experiments with it. It was like, okay,
and you couldn't compensate for its lacks.
It's not worth it to me.
No.
It's not clear enough, clean enough, and it's not beautiful. It's just kind of burny. It's just it's like burny.
Yeah.
Just kind of campfire-y.
Yeah.
Even though there's something in there, it's just, maybe I just need to practice with it more, or experiment with more, but I can't just use necessarily anything.
No. So you need to start with high quality, appropriate materials.
Yeah. For real. There's classics, right? Sandalwood and agarwood are like,
you can't go wrong.
Really dense cedars, like the Himalayan cedar or the Atlas cedar. I have a really beautiful Western red cedar. I love the heartwood. It's really aromatic, and I can articulate it with smoothness, and it has elegance. It's not aggressive.
So you also have an affinity with certain aromatic materials?
I think, well, there's a universality, I think, to some sense, like sandalwood and agarwood. I really think there's definitely a universality to the human senses. Some of us can't really quite tell the differences, but sandalwood, agarwood, cedar, basically, I think are quite universal.
Yeah.
I personally, I've definitely grown into a deep love and respect in relationship with agarwood, articulating so many different unique species varieties and microclimate regions. And I would say at the edge of my universe, what I'm always looking for are unique specimens of species,
right?
Regardless of if it's agarwood, sandalwood, cedars. I would love to find that unique example of a species, and I call that species versus specimen, basically.
Right.
And there's just these extraordinary specimens of raw materials that you just can't explain. They're like, wow. Like my Himalayan cedar, the Stanford cedar. It's just an example of species versus specimen. I smell 1,000 Himalayan cedar materials. Nothing smells like that one tree. That one tree, because there were nails driven into it and it produced all this oil, and there was a tree house, and then there's a bunch of other reasons. I'm
all
sure
these things contribute.
Terroir, whatever.
Yeah,
it grows better on the West Coast than it does even in Afghanistan or something. So,
wonderful.
Yeah, it's a whole universe there for sure.
Yeah.
in the ability to choose your materials wisely, and for what reason. And I think you just need to have a lot of coherence and clarity.
Yeah.
If you want to make incense for people. Yeah. Not just yourself. If I was doing it for myself, maybe I would, I don't know how different I'd be. I always am making incense with the perception of trying to take care of people's senses and take care of people's nervous systems and their minds, their hearts.
So there's an element of, is it the traditional Chinese medicine? Is that part of your approach or your?
Yeah. There's definitely
training?
not formally, I would say, very much in terms of my training from Artisan, but from my Taoist teacher, Taoist medicine, Chinese medicine, also my tea training, but also I think maybe just, kind of my aesthetic that matured over time through appreciation and through developing my own senses. Scent is just so powerful. So I'm trying to take responsibility in a lot of ways for that potency, and it goes right into our being and changes us so quickly. So I'd say there's a couple elements there, and there's a lot to say about in Chinese herbal medicine realm of thermal nature, channel affinity, organ affinity, combination of ingredients, how the blend might act as a similar to an herbal blend,
right.
And that's a very sophisticated, and I'm getting better at that. I've done that quite a bit, so that's just a whole other realm. So I usually try to say on the product page or in the description what I'm going for or what it's meant to do,
right?
Or if it's a classical recipe from a text, or if it's a seasonal recipe. But I think it links in later. I think it links into a concept that I put out there a bit, which is smelling is knowing, and that I'm actually trying to calibrate and evolve people's sense experience that's scent feeling,
right?
And hopefully helping create a standard for that experience.
Wow, that's ambitious.
It is ambitious. We should aim high.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
What do they say? Aim for the moon and you might hit the eagle.
Yeah, I like that. I haven't heard that before.
So you mentioned Chiara Zen. I understand you studied with Chiara Zen, and you work from East Asian incense traditions and standards. What can a teacher transmit directly, and what can only be learned through years of smelling, failing, and making?
That's a really profound question. There's a lot to ponder in that. The first part was mainly, what was the first part of that?
Working with Chiara Zen and East Asian incense traditions.
Oh, let's just say, the East Asian tradition. Okay, so I was inspired by Chiara Zen originally.
Right.
And that aesthetic and that purity and that what that conveyed to me, I was like, this is incense. This is what I want to burn.
This is what it was meant to, yeah.
This is what I knew it didn't have to be so aggressive and mess me up like that. And I realized the East Asian aesthetic is incense for it isn't just incense for offering necessarily. Like
right.
Incense is got two major categories for me, and just broadly speaking, like its purpose. One is obviously just offering. The classic human sacrifice, the fire sacrifice, goes back who knows how far. It's just about a relationship to the unseen.
Yes.
And broadly, as broad as I could say that. And then there's the other one, which I think is not really necessarily, maybe it's like aromatherapy in a sense, but it's aromatic nourishment.
Yes.
Okay, so if I can cook for you, if I can make something that you're gonna ingest and it's gonna become a part of you, I really want it to be really good for you.
Yeah.
With love and with purity ingredients and well blended and appropriate, in all categories. And I think the East Asian aesthetic lends itself to that nourishment level.
Right.
Now, maybe not publicly anymore because a lot of the brands or a lot of like the advent of industrial technology, I think has changed a lot of things. So it's a very broad statement to say East Asian aesthetic. Yeah. And I'm trying to help contribute to what that might be. And then Chiara Zen invited me into this. The only reason I got any even invitation was because I'm from a small Buddhist university where I did my degree, and that was the context. I wouldn't even have been considered. I was like a fanboy in all reality,
right?
And I had reached out to him, maybe like many people have, and he's obscure on purpose and wonderfully so. But so I was in my friend had just passed away on the Big Island. I was on my friend's tea farm, just kind of processing, and I got an email in the context of an invitation, and so what I would say in terms of things that are only able to be transmitted, I'm going to speak to Chiara Zen, and then I'll speak a little broadly, because what I think there are things that are only transmissible through integrity of lineage,
right?
And those are profound, intimate relationships, and I'm not going to claim that I'm definitely a student of Kiara Zen, and he has given me very specific and very beautiful tools, techniques, strategies. I would say he stimulated the ability to contemplate and inquire and perceive, to go down a path, to track a scent down, or to, there's a lot of different skills that he gave, but I think the one that was this like interest, curiosity, and skill set of asking questions and using different techniques to understand materials and how to articulate them. And some of those things I would say are just simply very specific, and he just gave me excellent knowledge, technical skills.
Right.
And then other things like values, motivations, background, those are also in tacit agreement and collaboration and in the context of the relationship. And I think those are more important than what you make is why you're making it.
Yeah.
I think it's at least in the same conversation. And
Absolutely.
so why make it? So maybe you have good intentions, that's good. But it's like I really wanted to find something that was, I did a lot of philosophical study, I did translation work, I really liked culture and language, and I loved reading, and I was really interested in a lot of different things, and I just needed to get my hands dirty.
Yeah,
And
balance it out.
I really just needed to do something that like make good food for people.
Yeah.
And so for me, incense was, I had this transformational experience with his incense, and for a few years, I trained, and I sent him things back and forth to Singapore, and I went to Singapore a few times, and that was a lot. There was a lot of evolution and change and learning and process that happened during that time, and I felt so motivated by a larger purpose of like, this is why I was born.
Wow. Yeah.
In no uncertain terms. So just follow this trail at my feet. Okay, you're not a master overnight. I want to find what's masterful and see if I can deliver that to people. Yeah. And if that mastery can be experienced together, it can grow aromatically, evolve aromatically. So that's been my underlying intention and purpose. And I think there's not a lot of conversation around integrity of lineage, I think, in the modern context. Now they call that gatekeeping.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, gatekeeping, maybe you don't deserve the knowledge.
Yeah, good point.
Is there any what's the conversation? I mean, because you can just fail and experiment, of course. No one would tell you to stop that. And you can do whatever you want, fine. But there are really special things that people hold. In martial arts, it's easier to understand.
Yeah.
Because like in the same place I was going to school, I had a martial arts teacher who was a one-to-one direct disciple, over 500, there's whatever the story. I won't say the whole story.
Lineage, yeah.
And it's like, he actually articulated what are the things that were preserved across all this time and what isn't. It's like, oh, wow. You're not going to get that on your own.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 in a billion will. I don't know. I don't want to say
just by working on your own, failing on your own.
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, maybe if you're 1 in a billion or 1 in billions that has a kind of extraordinary genius acuity, like there are those people. So I won't take anything away from anybody.
Yeah.
In all reality, however, there are very profound and meaningful transmissions, and those people should gatekeep.
Right.
So. And it doesn't matter if I'm white or any color or race or background. It's about the integrity of the transmission, and it's about the maintenance and about the sincerity of purpose.
Yeah.
It's not about what you look like or your.
Yeah. I mean, can these things be transmitted just with words alone, or is it more experiential?
It's funny because it really is both. I think I'm definitely someone who believes and acts out a reality of you can articulate the truth. And you can say something really meaningful and truthfully, and it really means what you say.
Right.
And that is an element of transmission for sure. And going back to like a music martial arts metaphor, you have to go beyond the words. And I think what's beautiful about incense and scent is we're doing that. And I'm speaking about it now for like the first time, but publicly at least. I love talking about it in markets or with people or friends or people who actually appreciate, because it's beautiful to be in dialogue, and especially when people really appreciate and love something or it moves them.
Yeah.
Then you feel like that transmission's being honored, and it's multiplying, proliferating harmonically or harmoniously.
Yeah.
And the wordless transmission between teacher and student is something that I wouldn't even pretend to embody, actually. No, that's definitely, I think, a very profound thing.
And was that part of Casey's transmission of information to you? Experience, information, knowledge?
Yeah, I think it was. I think mainly it would be more explicated, like it'd be much more overt. Like the things that he taught me were clear and overt,
right?
You know, and then the feeling and the tacit kind of exchange, I get mainly from maybe just his work itself, the incense itself, and that's where we were meeting anyways.
Yeah,
and it's fun. I mean, it's extraordinary to get feedback from your teacher, especially when I was when I was starting in the first 3-4 years, working really hard and tracking incenses down and feeling like I knew what I was looking for. I was running experiments, and then him to be like, you
nailed it.
Because this actually speaks to a larger conversation of calibration.
Right.
Who are you calibrating yourself to? Musicians train together, martial arts train together, steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
If you don't have people to push back and to eviscerate you lovingly, hopefully, hopefully, right? Like I've been eviscerated non-lovingly, you know. Maybe we all have in some way or another, but it's so meaningful because then you're reaching at the place you don't quite understand, and you're folding in and imbuing layers of meaning and technical skill and a cultural spirit and to be moving.
Yeah.
And is it landing in the person that you respect, you know, who, for their senses, for their acuity, for their technical, for their aesthetic. And I hope I've tried to find definitely more than him, you know, even just training friends.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, hey, if they have an interest, like really, like take me out of the situation.
Yeah.
Are you moved? Or what do you get? And like, I've had a couple of friends I've like trained pretty seriously. Their noses, I call it the nose heart. You know, it's like the place where the nose meets your heart and meets the intangible aspects of life. What's really happening there? How much is good? Or am I kind of like, you know, blowing smoke, right? So help me calibrate.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want to blow smoke.
Got it.
I just don't. Even if I do, right? Tell me I'm blowing smoke.
When you encounter an old incense formula, how do you translate it into the present? Plant identities change, materials disappear, language can be ambiguous, so where does faithful interpretation end and artistic creation begin?
Yeah, these are some great
That's
questions.
That's a big question.
That's a big one. I've done a few of these where I did basically like actual source text translation work from the Xiangcheng. It's like one of the old incense manuals. I think that's Song Dynasty, maybe Ming Dynasty. And there's a couple key things actually there. You won't even know what some of those things are unless you have somebody teach you.
Yeah.
The names for some of the things. Funny enough, a lot of those, I haven't done a lot of them. I did a few when I was training, like more specifically, and I've kind of gone on my own and like played with some. They're not that exciting to me. I don't actually, there's a few that I love. Like there's one that I love recreating called Gong For Yin Xiang. I just call it For the Buddha. It's an offering incense.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a bunch of Chinese herbs and there's all these different things, and you have to know how to process those. You can't just, you don't just add them together. You have to process them. You have to understand in real time too, like that batch, how strong. Did somebody sell you an old batch of whatever?
That's right, bottom of the bag.
Yeah. You know, all those things. So you have to evaluate every ingredient, and then what's really happening there? This is a really fun thing for me to think about because translation and interpretation. So translation of a classical, ancient recipe, interpreting it in a modern sense. So I'm doing Senko style, which is Japanese, pretty much, this case, it was an ancient urn-style burned trail.
Okay.
So that's already an interpretation. I'm making an
yeah.
interpretation. And then when you look at some of the ratios, it's like, okay, that's a lot of resin. That's never going to go, never going to fly in a stick, a little refined stick. I think there's a nuance where you really want to have an intimate knowledge of the source material, and a background, Like for me, I have a degree in Chinese studies. I was basically lived in an East Asian community since I was 19, or no, since I was like 16, 17, every weekend. I felt like I was just in it.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of experience with it. So I just had a natural love and affinity, even though I'm not Asian at all. I think there's something really there. And then the second part was how to stay true to what was the dynamic kind of at the end of that, the dynamic juxtaposition of old and new?
Where does faithful interpretation end and artistic creation begin?
Well, I think we live in an era of artistic creation at the cost of anything classic. We're a little bit, we've pushed.
We're cannibalizing the traditions?
Yeah, we've pushed far and hard into the direction of, because I can, I will.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-freedom. I love that we have that freedom. That's not the problem. Is that not, or the problem? The challenge is then integration and a way to have a dialogue, and that requires calibration and community and respect, and not just sovereign, independent.
Right.
This is what I say, and that's a tricky thing to dance. And I don't even think I don't necessarily dance that line necessarily very well either. I mean, I'm very independent. I'm American. I was born and raised down the road here in New York, in Buffalo. So I'm trying to learn that. I would say I'm consciously in my adulthood trying to learn that lesson where my ability to do something is calibrated and integrates and is imbued with other layers than my own like potent will.
Right. So
or artistic flair, my style, whatever that is.
Okay, your studio speaks about going beyond East and West. How do you honor the lineage of a traditional art while still allowing yourself to innovate?
I mean, this is why I moved to Hawaii. When I say it goes beyond East and West, it's because I wanted to, and this may be where we get into my audaciousness. I think I'm pretty audacious in some ways, and maybe unnecessarily so. But I moved to Hawaii in one way because I had friends there, and I wanted to be leaning more towards getting closer to nature and getting close to growing, getting close to understanding plants better myself, just in person.
The source of the materials.
Yeah, and especially sandalwood. Part of my heart was like, I really just want a relationship with the trees.
Yeah.
I just want to, what can I see? What can I do? And that's been a journey I can go into. So no east, no west is because I'm actually referencing there literally Hawaii. It is in the middle. It's everywhere. I say it's everywhere and nowhere.
Right. It's both the west and east.
Yeah, because it's so much integration. It's so much a super highway for the entire world on all levels. Like the projections of fantasies of paradise and the actual unbelievable opportunity that is paradise.
Yeah.
Extraordinary life force and also all kinds of issues. So no east, no west, and I guess that's something like a bridge I'm trying to build in my own process for myself.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to authentically integrate what I'm so inspired by my background in East Asian studies and studying with Artisan and that style of incense and just aromatics and aesthetics, and then with the West being this more innovative, or maybe not, just generally speaking, more innovative, but not necessarily.
Right, yeah.
Just freedom, spirit of freedom and spirit of experimentation and intrepid, like, I just have my eyes on the horizon and I'm just gonna go. And in Hawaii, I definitely, there's so many issues with Hawaii, just logistically, that it's been kind of more challenging than I realized, but part of my deep connection to nature, that has been the most beneficial thing for me.
For your work.
For my work and just for me. Because there's no real separation ultimately for me. I'm the conduit there, so how much do I experience the place in myself that emerges as a natural being in relationship to the environment around me? And it was all through agroforestry and just helping friends and volunteering, working on farms. And I want more experience. Like that to me is actually the actual horizon.
Right.
Not my incense or perfume or distillation. That's actually subsidiary to what I see as the most beautiful, most incredible project possible in humanity.
Right.
Is actually regenerating multi-dimensional, multi-story hyper diverse, hyper dense ecosystems of food and aromatics, and there's a dream there. I'm very romantic in that way.
It's a beautiful dream. I agree.
And I have, I'm a very young and very inexperienced in that realm, and so
you're always exploring and learning.
Yeah. And aromatics brought me to that place to begin again. Yeah.
You began this work partly because conventional incense caused allergic reactions. What does pure, quote, or clean incense actually mean? And what should we understand about smoke, ventilation, natural ingredients, and responsible use?
This is a lovely conversation. I think it's one of the most important ones at a basic level, because people may or may not care about my actual motivations or background interest or all the stuff that's biographical. I actually I would like the smelling as knowing concept to take over a bit, because then your body knows without the story what's good for you. And a lot of times people don't know what's good for them, so they need calibration, they need exposure, and they need some process to compare.
Yeah.
And I think most people could do this. If you were going to run an experiment, you're going to go buy. I remember last year I came home to visit. One of the times I was visiting you, I went to Walmart with my parents or something, and there's like a whole rack of incense. And I just kind of went near it. It's like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So maybe that's the worst.
Yeah.
So if we have a spectrum, it's like,
that's how we calibrate.
Holy moly, that is some gnarly stuff. And then say the best in the world might be just like vaporized, lightly heated aromatic materials, not even smoking, just like vaporizing. Something really, because some people have extreme sensitivity to smokes. Like my mom cannot smell any incense whatsoever, no smoke, or even just scents. She just has like full tilt reactions. She like dry heaves and gets a headache immediately, no matter how pure. The only thing she can really smell is like Borneo camphor. She likes camphor.
Really?
I think because I don't know. Excuse me. It cleanses her senses. So originally I was on this pursuit to find it. I could to make an incense my mom could enjoy.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. She just can't do it. But there's a conversation here where you use comparison to understand what purity is and what you should be smelling. And I use shoulds. I think it's important to use shoulds. It doesn't matter if you do it or not. It's just that there's some standard and some place that pushes back against your subjective reality. You do it, you don't do it, you like it, you don't like it, whatever. I'm going to say should here so that there's somebody establishing a standard.
Yeah.
And that is one element I always feel like I need to articulate, because people don't like being told shoulds often. If I say should, I really think a lot of the synthetics that they use are just extremely aggressive on the nervous system, and the limbic, brainstem, blood-brain barrier. You can just, you don't need to say it. You can just feel it's like it's manipulative. It's weird. It moves you emotionally, and I think it just does strange things. Like at theme parks, I noticed too. I went to like Disney World for the first time in 2021 with my parents. Like I noticed, because I'm sensitive now with my nose, all the different. They're like spraying aroma compounds in all these different places. Yeah, and it's like
trying to evoke feelings from
they
people.
Are definitely pushing emotional buttons through subtle scent, and like some of the times I think people would be able to perceive it easily, but sometimes like no, I know what they're doing, and I don't think everybody else knows.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily knowing like how it's affecting them. So I would say be wary. We live in an industrial commodity era.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pros and cons. I know it's a big world, and it's hard to cover all the bases, but if you're going to ingest something that's smoke, it should be really pure. You don't want to breathe a lot of it. You don't want to have.
You don't know how things are affecting you, because things do affect you.
They really do, especially if you like things all the time.
Yeah.
If you really like incense, and you like the vibe, and you just want to you want that time for yourself with the aromatic vapor. You should. It's serious, because it's going to build up over time. So just play with the idea that maybe that your favorite incense thick stick thing is kind of noxious, even if it's pure. Say it's like just resin and wood, but you're lighting it in a small room and you're getting fumigated. Okay, you do what you want, obviously. However, maybe that's exactly where a nice little thin stick of Senko, and maybe just light half of it, or maybe just break it off and like.
It's not so much about quantity as it is about quality.
No, yeah. That's a huge conversation. I really don't like. I really think synthetics are another part of the conversation that we all should be just improving upon and evolving beyond, and understanding how it affects us personally, so we know it's not just me telling you. It's like, if you paid attention,
it has to do with education, right?
Education is and I think you need the comparison.
Yeah,
it's not the thief of joy. The comparison is how you learn.
Yeah,
there's nothing if you don't have something to compare to. I remember the first time I gave my dad like an organic orange, and he's like never bought another conventional orange since, and he's just old school Italian guy. He just likes whatever his orange juice. Yeah. Now it's like, it's different. Yeah, that orange was different, and the ability to perceive anew and to adjust yourself and to change. Yeah, it's what makes us. I think it's what makes life really interesting, and meaning. It can make it really meaningful. And who knows what's on the other down that road?
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
nice. Your work moves now between incense, tea, natural perfume, Chinese climatic medicine, and regenerative agriculture. Do you experience these as separate practices or as parts of one larger study?
One larger study for sure. However, I'm such a beginner in the agroforestry stuff. It's just so moving, and it affected me so much when I did my volunteer and I did my couple immersions and I just helped some friends. So I have to be really humble around that. I just know what I don't know. I have this sense. Mm-hmm. So I'm at a beginning of a journey there, and I pray I get to volunteer more. I pray I get to grow more food forests or be a part of projects that are regenerating land in Hawaii and beyond. But the deepest mission there is regeneration on all levels, improvement on all levels, body, mind, spirit. Yeah. It's genuine, profound evolution, not just change. Yeah. And that's difficult. I find that difficult myself. I wish that for myself, let alone the fabric of the entire ecosystem on all levels. I really am interdisciplinary, and maybe it's just adult ADHD. It might be both. I don't know. It's a bit of a mix, I think. I might have a hard time concentrating or focusing on one thing, but I spent a long time in tea, and I had a really deep, meaningful, long-term relationship with a doctor who really changed my life. I'd say saved my life in terms of Chinese medicine. Those are some really incredible experiences and stories. I'm really still not completely I haven't completely processed his passing.
Right. Yeah.
But I was 15 when I had my first experience with a Taoist monk in Buffalo here. There was he was part of a traveling group. He did this beautiful calligraphy of the character Hu for a tiger and showed how it was a martial application. He demonstrated Tai Chi, womb breathing, and he opened the acupuncture channels, and you got to experience what the internal subtle energy flow was. I was 15. It really impacted me. And it's not woo-woo. It's all of the ancient traditions recognize the element. In Buddhism, it's the element wind in the body is breath energy. In Taoism, they're just more broad, and they just call it qi. And there's a couple different terms for it, and then there's as it manifests in different ways. It has different ways of talking about it in Chinese medicine. That's a beautiful whole world to explore of sense, impression, and calibration, and evolution and training of awareness and health and vitality, and it's an incredible world there. But yeah, so Chinese medicine influenced me a lot. I would say same thing with martial arts. I did a lot of when I was really young. I kind of got into all this through kung fu, basically, in Buffalo. And qigong and tai chi and volunteering and then my undergrad. So there's a very integrated backdrop tapestry that is the philosophy or the lived playground laboratory of Chinese philosophy or broad East Asian philosophy. Yeah. Of which now agroforestry is kind of the cleanest, clearest, most direct, meaningful manifestation of. Right. More than anything, I'd say, actually, I've experienced. How to integrate them all and how to do them all with guts. Yeah. I don't think I'm quite there. Tea maybe is a thing I spent the most amount of years in now. and especially in evaluating and quality control and understanding land management and species varieties and processing techniques. And that's a rabbit hole we can go down some other time. But
yeah.
Industrial commodities, incense, tea, foods, perfume. Natural perfume. That's a whole other. Yeah. We're looking at billion-dollar industries. And so you just have to have some skepticism, right? The skepticism is healthy. Not necessarily cynicism, even though it's become easy to be cynical. Being cynical is definitely the easiest thing. But skepticism is that you're actively inquiring onto the nature of its truth, and it's why is somebody presenting you with something, and what does it really mean, and is it worth what they say? Is it worth it for you? And tea is just a massive industrial commodity scam. Incense is a industrial scam. Perfume, industrial scam. And because they're so potent symbolically and culturally, it's like I'm making a strong statement there.
Because you're saying between the facade, what they present to us, how they present it, and versus what it really is, the adulteration or chemical sources of compounds that are in it, like those are they're too disparate.
Yeah. They're too far removed.
Yeah, and we only see what they're presenting us.
Yeah, and people, and they're powerful because they're so symbolic, and because they have such weight, gravitas in culture, different brands or different, whatever they are,
Well, the marketing is powerful.
Yeah, we live on story.
Yeah.
And my struggle with Yin-Xi craft incense has been, I've always wanted to get people beyond the story, whatever my biography is, whatever, to this smelling is knowing, a calibrated
to the
sense.
Experience.
To the direct experience that leads them to the respect for their own senses, which leads into this potential of their human being to access the Tao at their feet.
Yeah.
Something like that, in terms of it's like a extrapolated pedagogy from my
experience,
my BA and MA.
Right.
Really, it's what it is. I'm borrowing the framework internally. I'm borrowing the framework and my experience and my time in my undergrad and graduate school, but it's a bit too abstract still, and it's hard to marry that abstract vision of going beyond storytelling without telling a story.
Yeah.
So I certainly understand the difficulty and the nuance, and I'm not good at it, I don't think, yet. I don't know how to storytell, I think, very well, especially in marketing or branding. I like the simple packaging with like a few words and just like a name, and I'm just kind of like maybe highlighting some things to maybe like as a key, as like a touchstone, and then somebody can go into it.
Yeah.
But we still need storytelling. We still need. Absolutely. I think it's just telling true stories.
Right.
I just tell a true story.
Yeah.
If the true story is you messed up the batch.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a true story. Especially when it comes to tea, like they have to sell tea. So if they mess up the batch, they're gonna say this is a Gaoshan chai, this is the high mountain, blah 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 blah. Oh, this perfume, maybe they messed up the batch, and they
it's true.
I think that's the skepticism. No. So find people you trust. I mean, the cool thing about you guys at Apothecary's Garden's amazing. You guys have every species. You guys are so consistent, so reliable. So I love what you do. There's just that reliability, transparency. I feel good about supporting. It's 100%.
Thank you.
Find people that are like that as best you can.
Yeah. The moral of the story.
The moral of the story.
I don't know. This last question is odd.
Okay, what do we got?
What are you trying to understand now that you could not even have asked when you began? Oh, that's not that odd. What are you trying to understand now that you could not even have asked when you began? So new questions.
I think the newest question that lives inside me as like a dense nugget of inquiry that I didn't know was possible was this whole question around what is regenerative versus sustainable.
Yes.
Versus commercial versus commodity versus industrial. Regenerative. What does that mean? So in an inner sense and an outer sense. And I think I used to kind of think about this question, but not in the way that I do now because of my experience with interacting with agroforestry or more complex ecosystems and how it affects me internally,
Right.
and what it actually means in my consciousness when life force is unbound and maturing and flooding and flowing, and what that means for my emotions, my ideas, my ability to create, to articulate, to live life. So I feel like I'm asking a question of like, how is what I'm doing not merely, like, I feel like a little bit like the idea of like you're not growing, you're dying. And in nature, if things aren't growing, that's what's
Yeah,
happening.
there's one or the other.
Stasis is actually just a degradation, but regeneration is, after studying, you realize there's this zone in forest succession where everything's regenerating, and then it matures, and then it goes do another cycle. So it gets climax, and then it falls again. And one of the techniques in Pacific agroforestry, and again, I'm an absolute beginner in this, but these ideas hit me hard, was that they can hone in on that zone between the stage of abundance in an ecosystem and a climax stage. You can actually reset and keep it in regeneration.
Ah.
So what does that mean on all levels?
Right.
What does that mean? So I say that question.
Immortality.
Totally. Totally. That is the Ponce de Leon, the Fountain of Youth.
Yes, that's right.
I think that there's a deep spiritual longing, and I think that gives clues to what we should be looking for. And for me, it led me into this mode of like, what's available in the natural phenomena in the realm is teaching you about your inner climate. Going back to the climate medicine and the Chinese medicine stuff, the inner and the outer.
Yeah.
I think that's the unexplored territory. That's the beautiful, something that's unendingly, profoundly beautiful, and everybody's unique unto themselves, and their potentials are unique, and their destinies are unique, and not merely being fated, but walking a path that's more oriented towards a sense of destiny, not just kind of like reacting.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that I think I didn't know how to ask when I first started incense making. Now it's more how much can I imbue or fold into my work. Like the principle that I would say is you hide all your work, or no, you show all your work in math class. Right? You have to show
the whole process.
You got to show it. So you show all your work in math class and you hide it on your final draft in English. So my ability to hide all the work in the how to hide the math in the
between A and B.
Yeah, how to hide the math in the final draft in English.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think everybody should ask themselves like, what are questions they're asking that they couldn't even have asked, say 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or after having a certain experience in life. Because if you're not at the edge of yourself, you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
And I think that's a truism. I mean, that's just what we all needs to be peaked. We all need to have our interest peaked.
Yes.
And we all need our soul poked.
Yeah, to keep pushing the boundaries and the envelope.
Yeah.
And growing.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just easier to codify. Long story short, it's easier to grasp and to codify than it is to release and expand.
Yeah.
Even though maybe that's what wants to happen. It's the negativity bias or the conditions of life or the circumstances of life can harden us, and the soft, the pliable is what's resilient.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way of looking at it. One last question. After the incense is burned, the smoke has disappeared, and only a trace remains in the room. What do you hope remains in the person?
I mean, I think about this more than I think about probably anything. What can I hide?
What are you giving to people?
What can I hide on my final draft in English in the experience of someone left over as the smoke dissipates? I have one really simple answer that I can always expand on, but the answer to that is harmony. The feeling of reunion, harmonious integration. In my larger studies, this principle of harmony is the predicate for evolution. It's necessary but not sufficient for the evolution, not just change, but to grow and evolve, to change and evolve. And harmony is the harmony, balance, equipoise, equilibrium. All these are words for, I think, something that we're always maybe intuitively or overtly or just naturally, whatever, we're always trying to find balances. Hot and cold, warm and, hot and cold, tall, short, all the polarity of life. We're trying to like find the place that's harmonious for ourselves in relationships, whatever. So in incense, I hope that people come away in the afterglow of an aromatic experience with something that I make, both with a sense of, both with a clear sense impression of what that material is, and with a sense of harmony in themselves, or a clean kind of purity in themselves, like that their senses are returned to them. Because there's a sweet spot here that I'm looking for. This is actually, I haven't really articulated it, maybe overtly. There's a sweet spot between like being inundated with an experience and having to have your sense reach out to the experience. That the subtlety between being there's a place between being fumigated and like, what's that? What's
you're opening yourself up to something that's
yes. So I
available.
would love that sweet spot to be struck with incense sticks, where you for sure it's vaporizing, it's combusting, and you can smell it. But there's something that's leading you out. But as it leads you out, you're going in.
It's inviting you.
Yeah, totally. And maybe it's an old concept. It's a very classic concept too in like martial arts or Tai Chi Qigong. The simultaneity, the dynamic polarity of opposites.
Right.
As you expand, you contract. As you contract, you expand. And like you working with that basic fundamental polarity. And I think that actually, if I do that well, or if that incense is right for that person, because sometimes, how can all the incenses at all the times be like that? Right. I don't know. That's too much probably. Yeah. But the right incense for the right time and the person and what that person needs, if it could do that, where it activates, returns them to their senses, resets their whole being. I always say too, it's what this dharma of incense, I call it. It's a dharma. It's a skill in craft with meaning and purpose that has layers of culture and religion and human history and all kinds of things. It's a vaporous solvent.
Right.
It's a solvent
that penetrates us.
It does. It dissolves and it helps us release whatever is collected.
Right.
we coagulate and we kind of collect emotions and thought impressions and all kinds of bullshit. I know I do. Like, it's easy. It's easier to collect and to hold and to contain and to cling and to codify than it is to done forever.
Yeah.
Release. And I think I do that for myself. I think that's like my personal orientation, but I do think that's a universal need. Like originally when I first started doing some of the marketing or branding 6 years ago or something, I loved to say one less thing. Or like I don't sell incense, I make sticks of future ash. Something like that. Just to emphasize that this is one less thing. And that the process of burning this one less thing is the one less thing. You haven't added something, you've subtracted something from your entire your environment, entire being, environment, everything. And that I hope that's all just folded in the final draft in English. But I'd like to say it overtly too. You can give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to have one less thing, or I guess you get some ash, but the ash is easily recycled.
True. Well, Ken, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much. Thanks for visiting again.
I love coming to Apothecary's Garden, Dan.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you for all your work.
Appreciate all the materials on all levels, and nice to be appreciated.
Oh, Dan, your work is incredible. What you offer, incense makers, perfumers, natural artisans, on all the wavelengths. I'm definitely like a strange, I'd say fraction of a vast universe of aromatic explorers and artists, and I know that I'm not for everybody, and I know that my work has got a particular flavor, and I'm an opinionated, strong mind. I'm not necessarily what everybody would consider I don't know how to put it, but basically there's a big world out there, and you are so generous and so consistent and so solid for all of us. To have such quality, to have such clarity. I'm lucky to be here. I'm grateful that you even wanted to interview me. You know, I treat it as an honor, and I look forward to seeing this beautiful place progress. Last year to now was incredible.
It's
and
evolving, yeah.
You're an inspiration. And thanks for doing what you do. You know, I mean, you help make a crazy dream or aromatic artist in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, I serve all the crazy artists.
You do, and so likewise, right back at you, Dan.
Wonderful. Well, I hope to see you back here next year. Thanks, Ken.
Aloha.